Hi, this is Greg Forzani with another Don't Miss the Point of Business video. I want to share a client success recently because this applies to everybody. And in my opinion, this is single-handedly the number one thing that impacts a business, period. It's how you price your product or service. So this is the example. Started with a client and their gross margin was 31. So let me back up. We increased their profit by over 6% immediately. Very simple. Here's what we did. Number one, their gross margin was just over 31%, like 31.11 or 31.17%. And by the way, gross margin is the same as gross profit, depends what word you use. And what that is if your cost of goods is 70%, then your gross margin is 30%. So in this case, the gross margin was just over 31%, like 31.1 something. We immediately changed their pricing to 37.5% gross margin. And the reason was because their expenses were down around 30% of their revenue. So running at a 31% gross margin meant that this company was going to be making 1% profit on every transaction. And nothing you can do about that. So unless you change your prices or lower your expenses. Well, we looked at their expenses are pretty lean. So the first thing we did is change their gross margin to 37.5%. So that's increased their profit by 6%. And the point is this, if you want to truly understand it, your gross margin percent the formula needs to be your expense percent plus the net profit percent you want to make. So if you're running at 30% expenses in your business and you want to make a 10% profit, then your gross margin has to be 40%. There's no other way to calculate it. So you got to know your P&L, you got to build a budget, you got to do the numbers, and you got to make sure that your gross margin percent is your expense percent plus your net profit percent. That's the way it works. That's the way the math works. There is no other way. And it's the single number one thing you need to understand to really be healthy. If you don't understand that, then everything else you do will not impact your business to the same degree that will. Now, with this client, we went from 1% profit up to over 7% profit, and now we're going to go work on some other things to get them up over 10% profit. But that's the first thing we did, and it made the biggest difference.